he's got the ability to be up there with those guys as well.
He's got all the potential to do so.
Everyone was saying, what am I talking about? But trust me, he will.
And, we look at it, 10, 20 years down the line as a general, as a Premier League all-timer.
He will be the next.
As Tottenham keep atop the Premier League table warm, Arsenal finally ended their 12-game losing streak against Man City to join their North London rivals at the Summit. Chelsea win again. That's 3-3. We have got a very exciting podcast today. We're back with another one. I'm here joined with Matthew and Craig.
Yeah.
And of course, my name's Clive. And we're going to start off with that game that kicked off and finished yesterday as of recording. Sunday nights, Sunday super special, Arsenal versus Manchester City. A very late but very welcome 1-0 win. The apprentice outdone the master. Craig, how are you feeling today after this game?
I'm buzzing. No, honestly, it was a great win. Need to win the game, get that hoodoo off our back. And we played good football. It was a very tactical game. Both defensive was solid. I just took individual moments of brilliance of tactical awareness from Arteta to make changes at the right time. I made the changes, and all the players who came on made a big impact. From Tomiyasu to Partey to Havertz. Then Havertz laid the ball off to Martinelli. Martinelli scored the winner. So I had a special shout out to Gabriel and William Saliba for keeping Haaland quiet. He kept him very quiet all game. Didn't have a shot on target all game.
Let's talk about the first half in a bit more detail. So obviously, we knew from pre-match that the lineup was going to be maybe polarising to some fans. Obviously, Saka was injured and out, although the manager did say it was to be available pre-game, but that was obviously mind games from Arteta. And he picked the team that you'd probably say on the balance was the right team to go with. I think, Matthew, when you looked at that starting 11 that Arsenal had, so just to recap, we had David Raya in goal, continuing again. The back four had Ben White, Gabriel Saliba and Zinchenko, and in front of them we had George, Declan Rice and Ødegaard, and then the front three of Nketiah, Jesus and Trossard. When you saw that lineup going into the game, how did you feel looking at it, and did you think it would help Arsenal have a platform to kind of carry on what they want to do throughout the match?
Just had a funny feeling through the whole game. And I think I said it a couple of recordings ago where it was like, if the best time to pick at City at the moment is going to be now. So I just had a funny feeling that a result was going to go away, whether it was going to be a hard-earned draw or maybe a cheeky win, which is exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. I know I said last time I would have had Ramsdale in goal, but if anything, having in Raya and beating Man City in that game with Raya in goal just shows like the strength and depth that you finally have. You have two starting keepers in, and your newer one has come in and arguably weathered the storm really, really well. Long may his reign continue. If he continues that into the next City game, I think it's sometime next year, that's going to be an incredible statement if you can get a result here somehow. But no, overall the team, even in the first half, did like really, really well. They weathered the storm, few shaky moments, but they kind of like weathered their attack kind of well. Saliba just showing his qualities massively, like Craig said, with just Haaland barely got a touch of the game. But he's had that for the past, 4 or 5 games where he's just not been himself. I don't know, but must be knackered from last year. But no, it was a very impressive turnaround. I will say this though, is that there's lucky that there was all men on the pitch, because like Kovacic, Ancient Kovacic, by the way, you're welcome, put in an absolutely nasty one on who was it? Who was the tackle on again?
Ødegaard and Declan Rice.
Yeah, so to have the stones to carry on and have that mentality of like, we're not going to let this get us. Let's go out there and we'll get the win. I think just shows the character you've had so far, because I know a lot of like pundits and everyone's questioned your start to the season so far. But getting a win like this, I think, is going to just stop those questions coming through until the next game when we play each other. But I think the players, and not only that, the subs made a massive difference as well. It's like Tomiyasu, even Partey as well, doing absolutely brilliant. Martinelli getting that key goal. He likes getting key goals. He really does. And although he hasn't got like the goal tally he has so far, this is a vital one. This is the vital one because we're 2 months in. This could play massive towards the end of the season in one way, shape or form. We don't know what exactly in. Still very early. Only 2 points ahead, but it's got the potential to be like massive. So your players did really, really well.
I think those are really key observations to make. I guess one of the things I do want to pick up on is that talk about the shaky start at the beginning from the goalkeeper, David Raya. I know I did say on the previous episodes that I would have liked it if Ramsdale had a run of 3 as well. You know, Raya had his 3 and Ramsdale had his 3, just kind of mix things up a bit. But he did have quite a shaky start. I guess for you, Craig, when you were watching Raya, who was really struggling with his distribution and he just looked very nervous, were you worried that he was going to cost us a goal? Or did you feel like, since Arteta's mentioned that he's happy to make subs of goalkeepers, did you think he would do it in this game?
Yes. He was very shaky in that game. I was like, oh man. Like the one where he tried to clear it when Alvarez, that was the one I said, Clive, I was watching the game with you. I said, Clive, that was good. I swear, I was like, no. The way how he kicked it and Alvarez blocked it, and I thought it was going in, and it went wide. I was like, oh my gosh, heart in mouth moment. Like my heart was doing next numbers. I was like, and then obviously like I felt like in the second half he was more solid. He made some good saves. Like Declan Rice saved them in the first half as well for the header. The header was going in, and Declan Rice cleared it off the line.
Off the goal line.
So I think he was nervous for the game. It's a big game, massive game for him. Obviously playing for a big club like Arsenal, playing Premier League, Champions League. So it's a different kind of pressure than being at Brentford where you're fighting, no disrespect to Brentford, you're fighting relegation or you're trying to stay in the league. So it's a different type of pressure. So I feel like he did well in the second half. I was worried. I was saying, you know, if he continued like that in the first half, I feel like we should have taken him off and put on Ramsdale, but maybe that would have damaged his confidence a lot if we'd taken him off like that. So fair just Arteta, maybe I think he fired up the whole team at half time, not especially Raya, because the second half was a different animal in the second half. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, yeah, second half, Raya, the whole team came out with a different mindset and seemed a lot more kind of on it. And I think what I liked as well, and what surprised me, it shouldn't really surprise me because the guy, you know, has won a European Championship, but Jorginho shielding the back four really looked the part. And like we know his distribution is good, but the way how he was helping to just calm things down in the midst of Raya's kind of erratic performance for like the first half really. It took him, I mean, I think after 28 minutes he kind of calmed down a bit and was a bit better. But yeah, Jorginho definitely stepped up as a leader and was definitely one that I was really happy with. And I'm going to talk about his midfield partner in a bit and what he did in the game. But as you mentioned, Matthew, Agent Kovacic with an absolutely disgusting tackle. I have issues with this situation, and it kind of continues on the conversation we had in the previous podcast about VAR and the way how the referee and governing body work within that framework. My big issue is this. VAR reviewed it for serious dangerous play, said it was okay, yellow card was fine. What they should have done is told Michael Oliver, go check yourself on the have a look at the monitor, mate, just to see whether you think this is serious foul play or not. The reason why is because if he had gone to have checked it and said, no, I'm happy with the yellow card, when he made the second tackle, which was an identical tackle, same kind of slide tackle, trying to receive the ball, but really you tapped them on the ankle, he would have been off. No question. I think the issue is Mike Oliver thought the first tackle wasn't as bad as it was, gave a yellow, whereas if he'd looked at the monitor, I'm not saying he would have upgraded to a red, probably should have, but if he doesn't give it as a red for the first tackle, the second tackle was definitely a second yellow card. For you looking at Matthew, do you think that during this international break, we've got 2 weeks off from Premier League, so we'll see how England perform and other nations around, but do you think that in this time period, the Premier League owners need to come forward and put serious pressure on the refereeing bodies to put in place a plan, an actionable plan to improve things? Because for me, taking my side out of the equation, if I was watching, like say West Ham Newcastle, and I saw that exact same tackle, I'd be screaming for a red card. And the fact that it hasn't been given, or Wolves Aston Villa, I'll be screaming for a red card. And the fact that it hasn't been given because he doesn't want to spoil the spectacle of the game, I just think it's unacceptable. But do you think now, in this time period, we need to see a rising in the standards of referee and actually being accountable for the decision making?
It wouldn't surprise me if they've started that already, because this is not the first week in this new season where we've had a decision where it's just like we question the kind of like credibility of the referee's choice. We still got to go on from, all right, we've moved on from last week from Liverpool, but that's still going to be ringing in a lot of people's heads. Then you got this situation, you got situations in the past. It almost feels like every week that goes by, it just gets worse and worse and more and just much more laughable. I was watching the highlights earlier today with the SPL, Scottish Premier League, and they seem to get it right. No real problem. You don't really hear too much of a problem. Granted, it's a smaller league, but still, it's a Premier League nonetheless. I don't hear of any other issues there or in any other league. Why is it the Premier League? Why is it us? I said it last week. Why is it us that have to be seen as a bit of a laughing stock, where a clear red card is not given, and then you got 2 back over from last week against Liverpool, whereas the communication was just so poor. It wouldn't surprise me already if they've already done some sort of thing, because something's got to be said to somebody to get it, to get it right, to make it a bit more a bit more streamlined. Make decisions that much quicker. If you're not sure of something, check it quick. Talk to the screen, listen to the guys upstairs, or use your actual judgment as a referee to take charge of the situation. But even with all that, I still would like to see a more. I think it happened in the Women's World Cup this year, where they actually shared decisions with the fans, just so they know what's going on. They do it in rugby, they do it in the NFL for years, they do it in cricket, they do it in tennis, they do it in every other major sport. The Cricket World Cup's going on right now, the Rugby World Cup's going on right now. It's going to be done there. In a high-stakes Premier League game, plus you've got the World Cup coming up as well, how have we not got to a point where it's only getting better? I mean, you're going to have niggles, but these mistakes are so costly. So costly. Not even just for the result of the game, but for the well-being of the player. You'd already lost your talisman in Saka, Craig, when he comes back. And I think he did it twice on 2 different players. It was Odegaard and Rice.
Yeah.
They're two, especially Declan Rice in the England fold. He's a key player in his first year at Arsenal. That kind of tackle can do some serious damage. Decisions aside, what about the player's well-being? Having care for your fellow man. It was very, very ill-timed, a challenge as well. And decisions just don't help, but for the sake of the fluidity of the game. You can't have it both ways, sort of thing. So something needs to be done. I'm still standing by the decision I make by having them share it with the fans, so at least then they know where they stand, and this. It's fair across the board, because there'll be some City fans being there because I was looking at it thinking but yeah, something needs to be done. 2 weeks, our game is one of the first games back after the international break on that Saturday. If there's going to be a massive talking point, this podcast won't get peaceful.
Listen, if there's a big talking point on that game, bring your popcorn. It's going to be
dramatic, entertaining.
But I think just 2 final things on that game. I think the first one I want to talk about is a player who you mentioned, Matthew, who to me, every time he steps on the pitch in an Arsenal shirt, it's just showing why the price we paid for him is literally just a bargain. And that's Mr. Declan Rice, a.k.a. Jollof Rice, a.k.a. Rice MPs.
Rice, baby.
Rice, baby. So happy with what he's doing, and playing in this match in the number 8 position, so more box-to-box role rather than the typical shielding role that he does. For you, Craig, how impressed were you with his performance, and how much does it highlight what a lot of fans have been saying from the very beginning, that our best 11 will include both Rice and Partey, which I will concede on that point, having seen it now. Yes, together they do work really well. But how did you feel about that as a setup?
Great, because Declan Rice got the energy, he's got the legs, and that's what we lacked last season. We lacked legs in that midfield last season. If we had a Declan Rice in that midfield last season, and then how many games we had left to run in? Last 8 games?
8 games, yeah.
If we had Declan Rice in that midfield last year, we would have won the league. He would have stopped all them mistakes from happening, the mistakes that were made. He would have had that area of calmness on the ball, that leadership. He's a leader.
I don't know how much he would have helped us with holding in centre-back, but he would have made a difference. But I don't know if he would have saved us all those bad results.
He would definitely be a future Arsenal captain. He'll be here for a long time. He'll definitely be a future Arsenal captain in the future. He's got leadership qualities. Even a future England captain as well when Harry Kane eventually hangs off his boots or whatever. He'll definitely be a future England captain as well. He's got the leadership qualities. I see the way how we're telling players where to go. He was not happy with Jesus yesterday when Jesus never passed him the ball in the box when he could have squared it and he'd had a tap in. So he's showing that elite mentality to have as if you want to be a top-class, world-class midfield player, that you need to be always alert in the game, aware of all your surroundings, always pushing. He leads by example. He's a leader. Also always had great midfield players like we had the Vieiras, of the Premier League eras. You had the Roy Keanes, you had the Lampard. He's got the ability to be up there with those guys as well. Everyone was saying, what am I talking about? But trust me, he will be the next.
I'll throw this to you because he's made this point himself that, he's a big Yaya Toure fan. There's a video of him and Yaya Toure, I think at his house actually, just going through like some of the kits of players he's played against that he's received and just kind of like talking with Yaya Toure. But I think he said in a separate interview that since, like, when he came to Arsenal, one of the players that he's looking to try and emulate in his game is Patrick Vieira. For you, Matthew, do you think with what he's shown so far and how quickly he's not only adapting to Arteta's style of football, but more importantly, how he's putting his personality across and the attributes he already had, which he developed from his time at Chelsea Youth to being West Ham captain to now being an Arsenal player? Do you think that is it's possible for him to reach that goal and actually be a Vieira type player for Arsenal?
I think when it came to someone like Vieira came with an air of fear about him. Like, he was tall, he was strong, he was fierce, and he didn't back down from, you asked Roy Keane, he did not back down. He got that dog in him. He really did. And I feel like he is going to be, I don't think he's not the next best thing at the moment. He's still got a lot of filling in to do, but he's the best bet you have right now of filling in if he stays fit, if he stays with you, and he's got good players. And I think with Vieira, he had players around him that kind of amplified and made him better. When you're playing alongside of Henry, Kolo Toure, David Seaman and Bergkamp, you're naturally going to get better. Declan Rice has got Saka around him. He's got Nketiah, Jesus, Odegaard, Saliba around him. This has been your best chance in 20 years, not just of getting towards a league, but building a team that nobody wants to play, which in what you've said all this time is what Arteta wants, a team that's really hard to play against. So at the moment, the pieces are very kind of nicely slotting in at the moment, to the point that you can't think of a position bar up front of where you need to improve, but that will come in time. So, you have to look at a point where a team looks at it and be like, I don't want to play Declan Rice, I don't want to go against this guy or whatever. He is the best opportunity that you have. He won't be the next Vieira. No one will be the next Vieira. He's going to be the first him. So, he stays fit and he works around the system, when all being well, the season goes really well, you could be looking at multiple trophies.
But I guess do you think he could reach that level though? Not to say he'll be the next Vieira, because I think obviously every player through every era, they define themselves, and like the best players find a way to stand out. Like no one would say that Neymar is the next Ronaldinho, but you can definitely say that Neymar carried that Samba flair, which Ronaldinho lit the torch with and took it to a whole nother level, because numbers-wise, Neymar did way more. Yeah. But when you think about it in terms of like how when you reflect on them both career, like both in terms of how you look at them as players, people will probably gravitate more towards Ronaldinho because of how he made you feel when you watched him play. Whereas with Neymar, when you actually analyse it closely, Neymar's a way better player and had a much better career. But for you, do you think that Rice could reach that level and be in that conversation of like Vieira in terms of Premier League greats?
He's got all the potential to do so. All of it. And, we look at it, 10, 20 years down the line as a general, as a Premier League all-timer, he's got it all. And he's still got so much to fill in. So he's got that. He's got the potential, absolutely. 100% he's got the potential.
You, Craig, are you excited to see what we're going to achieve with Declan Rice in our midfield?
100%. I think like next season, obviously, Partey's getting old. Jorginho's getting old as well. So there might be a little retwig in the summer. We might get another partner for Declan Rice. Maybe 2 midfielders in the summer again. So I think we're going to build a midfield around Odegaard and Declan Rice.
But what's good with them, like you said before, with Declan Rice and Jorginho in that particular position, is that you got 2 commanding players. Like, for as shaky as Jorginho can be, one thing I will say very early on when we started is that I thought he was going to be a future captain for us, because he's very good at commanding and telling people where he wants them to go, And that in the very first season we had him, he actually did quite well. And even towards the Champions League, you know, his contribution was still just as important as any other player when you allow him to kind of, you know, allow him to play out and amplify his strengths. So it's kind of weird seeing our old midfield playing in two different teams on the same game. It was really weird to watch Kovacic there and Jorginho there, because we both know how well they play together, but, you know, such is football, I suppose.
And I guess on the flip side of all this, as we're happy talking about Declan Rice, we have to look at and acknowledge Manchester City. This is their third defeat, I think, not necessarily in a row, but in all comps in different games. They lost two league games in a row now, and also losing in the Carabao Cup. Now, and I think alongside that, I have to say that this really does amplify the absence of Rodri. And I know last season we lost Saliba to the back injury. People were saying, oh, look at Arsenal, bottled jobs, bottled this. But with Man City, without Rodri, the difference between winning and losing is staggering. Does this highlight the issue they've had with recruitment? Because if you look at it realistically, as you mentioned before we started recording, Calvin Phillips gets another call up for England but can't even get on the pitch. Rico Henry started ahead of him. In fact, who came on in midfield when they made the change to take off Kovacic at half-time? John Stones. Not Calvin Phillips. So do you think this is also an issue in their recruitment of not getting adequate backup for losing a player like Rodri, who to me is like Marmite? I can't stand the guy, but I respect the qualities he has on the pitch.
I think Rodri's a top class player, world class player. He's good at Atletico, came to Man City, changed it. Like, I think for the last couple of seasons, every season Man City, after they win the league, they sold their players. Like, they sold the season when Company left, they won the league, Company left. Season after that, Aguero left. After Aguero was Sterling. Who was that? Sterling. Gundogan last season. Mahrez. So
Fernandinho.
They've got a lot of good players of leaders they've lost in that midfield over the years. So every season they have to rebuild in their squad. That shows that they know what they're doing to win the league. They always rebuild all the time. But I thought this season they lost two key players. Rodri got suspended and Kevin De Bruyne.
Injury.
Kevin De Bruyne is a very good player, quality player. He was their best player for them last season. He supplied a lot of goals for Haaland and the rest of them to score goals. So him missing at the moment, how City kind of lost their edge, yes, I'll say a little bit, but other players have to step up and take their chance. And I feel like players like Calvin Phillips, no disrespect to him, has not taken his chance. He played against Wolves the other day. He looked lost.
He hasn't played for ages.
He looked lost on the pitch. Didn't know what he was doing. So not being horrible, but he didn't look like he wanted to be there. Like, he didn't know like what he was doing. He got taken off in the game. So I feel that with Rodri at midfield, he's their driving force. He's the Pep in that midfield. How when Pep used to play midfield from back in the day, he's their leader and he drives the team forward.
He's a fuel, man. He's a fuel.
He's got energy. He just does everything for them.
Yeah, and I guess when you lose a player as important as that, it's going to be very difficult to replace them positionally, but also the impact and influence they have. And I guess we'll see what happens in the next game, whether they can kind of, I guess, I don't want to say bounce back because this is Man City and they did win, the treble last season. So they're not exactly struggling for confidence or anything, but it'll be interesting to see what Pep does. Well, he'll have Rodri back, so normal reserves will resume. So we'll just see how it goes from there.
Business as usual.
But let's move across to talk about Chelsea. You won 4-1 away against Burnley. I know Burnley are not the Burnley of old, but they do play good football these days. And I think it was interesting because you went 1-0 down to start off with. A good goal by Wilson Odobert. And then, of course, you fought back an own goal. And then, your key players, one of your key generals coming up with the goods in Raheem Sterling, but, assisted by Conor Gallagher for that one. And then Cole Palmer set up Jackson, also got his own goal prior to that. But I guess for you, Matthew, as we just kind of break down the game, when you started the match and you looked at the team you went into that game with, were you happy with the 11 or would you have made any changes to it?
I find it a bit surprising because, for all the good that Mudryk did in that game against Fulham, a guy like him is still going to need to start to regain his confidence. But it's still a case of, might have been one of the changes I had because he thrives on game time. And eventually something will come out, and we saw that. But at the same time, he's trying to rotate his squad. He's probably got games in mind, like the Arsenal game, maybe. I'll only be okay with this if Mudryk starts in the Arsenal game, which I think he will. I think he came off half-time against Fulham anyway. But anyway, that's one of the changes I would have made because I know a lot of fans do complain about Sterling and, his indecisiveness, which has cost us in 1 or 2 games. I know a lot of him times call for a drop. With him, he's one of my generals, so I'm gonna be like, look, he's under a new system. He's under a manager that knows how to play quick attacking football, which is what Raheem Sterling is. So if anyone's gonna get the goods out of him, it's going to be Poch, and we were rewarded with it with a 10 out of 10 performance. On Saturday, he was a key driving force in all of the goals. He was there for the own goal. He got the penalty. He scored one of his own. He's involved in all these other goals. But it's just the difference of when you play much more attacking-minded players as preserved to defending a 0-0. And then when you go down to 1-0, protecting that as well. No, we got the players and we got the talent to go out there and go and get it. It was good to see Cole Palmer getting really involved, getting in the penalty, and just how he links up with Jackson, and who's finally happy to see him score again, and as well with Sterling. But what got me is that we didn't drop our heads after conceding. We went out for it. We went out, we fought, and I think we scored. I think this is in the calendar year, so from January to now, I think it was the first time we scored more than 3 goals. And I was just so happy with the reward, and saw the highlights afterwards.
Can you repeat that again? Because to me, that is absolutely outrageous. But go again, one more time.
Well, the first time in calendar year we scored more than 3 goals. We scored 3 against Bournemouth. That's Bournemouth, but 4 goals. Well, we used to scoring goals for fun, but now to get 4,
no, it's crazy.
It's mad. It is crazy. It's mad, and it's still not a stat that I'm too particularly happy with. But I feel like this is where we're only gonna get better from here. Obviously, we've got a big challenge with you guys in the next game, but it's just good to see that our attacking options are starting to come through. Conor Gallagher is getting better with every game. It's good to see Brozier back. Cucurella is much an improved player under Pochettino than any of our previous managers. I've still got confidence in Sanchez, and between the 6, all right, he conceded the goal, but I'd rather have. I said before is that this is what I wanted against Forest. This is what I want against Villa. All right, you go a goal down, but rather than go and protect the lead, go for it. If at the end of the day we lose, but we went for it, okay, fine. But we didn't go for it in those 2 games. We protected a 1-0 loss, which doesn't make much sense, which is really, really weird. And no, have the guts to go out there and go for it and go for it and go for it. And in the second half, we had them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had no reply. No reply. So it's a good way to end the international break and go, build up for you guys. I think it's going to be a cracking game.
It's going to be a massive game. And
I think it's going to be a cracking game.
I can't wait to see how it all pans out. I know I've got my interests very vested and locked, as you guys all know. But I guess for you, Craig, I want to focus on a young English player who joined the club recently, or this season anyway, in Cole Palmer, who looks like he's slowly cementing himself as on that right wing, although I think he might have, on the right wing for Chelsea. Do you think, because I remember looking at him in pre-season for Man City and I just felt like this guy is stepping into Mahrez's shoes. Obviously now we're seeing that they're using Foden out wide right. Some games and they kind of put Doku out there, other games, but it looks like Foden's more the right side for Man City. But do you think that Cole Palmer now at Chelsea is going to cement that position as his own, and how important has he been in the few games that he's played so far at the Bridge?
I think he's been a very quality young player. I feel like Man City will end up regretting selling him. But knowing them, they go and sell him and go buy someone else.
But they bought Doku. So.
Doku, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that they should have kept him. I think he's a good English talent. He scored a screamer against us in the Community Shield. I remember that goal.
He scored in the Super Cup
as well.
He equalised, yeah.
So I feel like I was a bit surprised City got rid of him, but I feel like he'll do well at Chelsea. He knows Sterling from Man City. He came from the academy, so Sterling knows they all know each other. So I feel he'll do well at Chelsea, to be honest with you. And under a manager, as I said before, Pochettino is very good with young players. He'll get the best out of him. He'll be a future England starter and challenging Saka in the future for England. So
he's a Poch player.
Yeah,
he is a Poch player, and I think that's why we want
hard worker, English, good running the ball, hard worker. Does a simple job what he needs to do. Got his goal the other day as well. Got a penalty, scored a penalty. The only way is up for him now. As long as he stays grounded and don't make the hype get to him.
Don't get injured.
And don't get injured either. I feel like he'll be fine. He'll be fine with Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some sentiment online. I want to throw this to you, Matthew, about Cole Palmer from Chelsea fans, and some of them were saying that this is the player that we hoped Havertz would be, which I think is incredibly harsh and very unnecessary. But when you look at what he's been doing so far, how well he's adapted into the system, how much he's developing, considering his age as well, you can imagine how much he's going to continue developing. Like, how happy are you for him? And do you think this creates a real issue in the 11 as the season progresses for the likes of Madikele and Midrick?
Well, it's a nice... I think what we're trying to do is what City have done and what you've done over a case of few years. We're trying to do it in a few months, where we're trying to build towards... I mean, this whole sustainability of all these long contracts. So these players ain't going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's a case of we want to try and do like not a quick build, but a substantial build to get us back into the top half of the table, back into Europe, possibly even, domestic double, because these are young players. All right, it's Chelsea, but they're young players. Them doing well, them lifting either the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup or both is doing a massive amount of confidence for the very first time, because then a lot of these, guys probably weren't starters in their previous clubs. It's now going to give them that kick on to going well in the league. And next year, who knows, we should be back, all being well, we're back in Europe, go on a tear on that and build on from there, and who knows. It's not much of a worry now because of the injuries we have, but when they all come back, it's better. And this is why we need Europe, because it's easier to justify that, because you can have one team for the league, one team for the cups, and one team for Europe. At the moment, we're lacking that European, which is a lot of games to kind of make up for, especially in the group games where he's playing every other 2 weeks. So I think that's what his thought is, that we will be getting to Europe in some kind of capacity in the next year. As for Cole Palmer, as long as he remains in form, he's going to end up being one of the favourites, which is both a gift and a curse for Chelsea. Last year, our favourites kind of cost us in our progress, and likes of Mount and Havertz, which as a result have both moved on. Do I see that happening with Cole Palmer? Not necessarily. I think he seems quite grounded in the fact that his progress is slight. There's no need for the Havertz comparison, because he's only been a handful of games, and Havertz came into a team that was already in Europe. Havertz came into a team that was already fighting, or very much at the time on the fighting end for trophies. We are nowhere near that. The nearest we're going to get, like I said before, is a Carabao and FA Cup. For such a young squad that needs all the confidence in the world to kind of progress. I mean, we got a young kid wearing our old captain's number, for crying out loud, which tells you a lot from where we were before. They need time to build and figure out what the best team is. But it slowly shows of where we are now. And I think Cole Palmer is very much going to be a part of that. If he stays in form, he's going to be a part of that.
I mean, I think for the money you spent, you have to win something this season. Like, I can get it needs time to bed players in and everything, but there's no sympathy on this podcast. You need to win something. Because everyone was saying, Arsenal, well, you spent all this money, you had to win the league. Okay, we didn't win the league. Fair enough, we'll hold that. But you guys, you got to bring something back to the bridge.
I think we're going to bring at least one domestic cup. At least one. Just to get the monkey off the back, and just to kind of give them something that they look at what we achieved, in what's been a difficult 2 years. I can see a domestic cup finally coming back to the bridge. I really can.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it is. But it's good that the winning run's continuing. And that's important that you kind of build on that. And one team that will be hoping to start their own winning run with a jammy, well-earned, not necessarily well-deserved, 2-1 victory at home was Manchester United against Brentford. Scott McTominay, a.k.a. McVitie's, sometimes called McSauce by some Man United fans, not by anyone on this podcast, came up good with the goals. Really happy with his performance off the bench. To come on so late and to bag 2 goals, especially on a weekend when Man United, as a club anyway, Sir Alex Ferguson's wife had passed away. And so, there is obviously a period of mourning there for the club, and you could kind of feel that as the game was progressing, just to kind of like, I don't know, the atmosphere just wasn't quite great at Old Trafford. Maybe there was a bit of sadness there for the loss. Maybe there was also all the other issues swirling around affecting the club. The fact that the takeover still is nothing done there, and hopefully it'll get resolved soon. But for you, Craig, when you look at that result, that performance, I mean, the performance was just shocking, but you look at the result anyway, do you think Man United fans now have something to build on, or is this just a one-off and it will all come crashing down the next game?
Fergie time. Oh my God, man! That always do bad for themselves, do they? They always have to scrape it to win it, hey? And in all seriousness, like this has to be a confident boost for them to get up the table now, because they can't be conceding the goals. They've conceded the most goals. I think they conceded the most goals near the team in the bottom of the league this season. Onana's had a shocking start to the season. I know he's new and he's never played in the Premier League before, but the team are not confident with him. The defense are not confident with him. Like every shot that Man United take, that team take against United, they're gonna score. He made a mistake in the Champions League on the Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
made a mistake on Saturday. And lucky enough, I feel like Ten Hag was praying to the gods. Let me see, what can I do? Bruno McTominay scored 2 goals, won the game. Bang. Game over. But I'm saying, if Man United continue playing the way they're playing, they're nowhere near getting top 4 this season. But you know, United, they'll go on a run. They'll go on a run after Christmas, and then you're thinking, I don't know how they do it. Honestly, I don't know how they do it, because they'll struggle to start the season, and all of a sudden they'll just, after Christmas, they'll pick up points. They'll get to a cup semi-final, get to a final, and then you turn around and look at yourself and say to yourself, how did they do that? It's always been like that for United.
It has. I mean, I guess just to kind of add some numbers to what's going on with them. So Man United this season, in the 8 league games they've played so far, they've won 4, drawn none, and lost 4. So it's either you win or you lose. That's one thing they need to sort out. Let's go into that a bit more. They've only scored 9 goals in the league. Oh. They've conceded 12.
Dang.
And therein lies the problem. Not enough goals being scored, too many being let in at the back. In comparison, let's look at Brighton, who are currently in 6th, Man United are in 10th. Of the 8 games played as well, Brighton have won 5, drawn 1, lost 2. They have scored 21 goals, but they've conceded 16.
Wow.
So, at least Brighton have got the right thing attacking-wise. They're getting the goals going that way, but they also have issues defensively. And then let's compare them to teams that they want to be, anyway, let's also mention Chelsea as well, since we're there. Chelsea are 11th, just behind Man United, but only by a point. You've played 8 games as well. 3 wins, 2 draws, 3 defeats. 11 goals scored, 7 conceded. So again, firepower is the issue, but at least defensively you're better than them. And in the teams that you're looking to get up and next to, let's look at Liverpool. 8 games played, 5 won, 2 drawn, 1 lost, 18 goals scored, 9 conceded. And when you look at the standard, which I'll use as Man City, even though they're in 3rd right now, 8 games, 6 won, no draws, 2 defeats, 17 goals and 6 conceded. So that's where you want to get to, really. And obviously the 2 unbeaten teams left in the league this season are Arsenal and Spurs, both with 6 wins and 2 draws each. Spurs have 18 goals scored, 8 conceded. Arsenal have 16 goals scored and 6 conceded.
Nice.
And actually our last 5 results are identical. So we both won 2, drew 1, and then won the following 2. So looks like North London, that draw was against each other. So there you go. But I guess it's interesting looking at the numbers of it, and you can see the problems there for Man United, just not scoring enough goals and letting in far too many goals at the back. It's just not what you'd expect from them. And I was going to ask the question, was that result down to luck? Or was it down to good coaching? Because he did bring McTominay on quite late. But for you, what would you put it down to? And how do you see that going on in the next game?
They rode it that time, because they were terrible that game. They really were. Brentford will feel a little bit robbed, both the goals coming in extra time like that. But, you have to put it down to just a bit of that Man United thing. And this has always been the fear that anyone knows. If any one team who doesn't necessarily deserve it, but will always find a way to jam their way to 5, 6, 7 wins and talk of a title race like they did last year. If any team, regardless of who's in charge, it's them. They always find a way. And I said this last time, they have this just uncanny way of just jamming their way to a first few results. This is the first, there'll be more. There will be more. They could jam against Man City. They could jam against Spurs. You just do not know. how they do it. And it had to come from a player that, probably does deserve a lot more time. Why is that? Because he represents what a Man United player is. Never give up. And, I know Fergie liked him. Fergie would have had him in this fold from like however long. He kind of represents at times a Manchester United of old, that attitude, the drive, the desire, the want to go through and win. I mean, talent-wise, you can argue, but his will, his determination, his tenacity will bring you, Anthony would kill for stuff like that. He's got the talent, but he just ain't got the drive. But whereas McTominay does. And there are times when you need it, when you're behind in a game, where sheer determination and will pull you through. It just needs to spread towards like some of the other players, and I just don't think the confidence is there. You said the defence don't trust Onana. I think Onana doesn't trust the defence. I don't think it matters who it is. But it is funny enough that two old school type defenders in Maguire and, Johnny Evans, who was last in and last won the Premier League, and they won the game. Go figure.
Well, I mean,
Go figure, man.
I think that's more down to Brentford just not going for the second goal really well in the second half. They seem to just... I don't think they were just settling for the 1-0, but because they tried lots of counter-attacks and they just poor passing, poor moves, and they had a few opportunities in the end to get that second, just kind of miskicked it, and it wasn't quite as sharp as what you'd want. But there was one moment I remember in the second half where Onana made a great save where he just tipped the ball over the box when one of the Brentford players got free in a move. And he looked around at his defence, and you could see that he wanted to shout at them, but it was almost like, what's the point? Nothing's going to change. His face was like, he just shook his head and was like, what's the point of me even shouting at you?
Varane or Maguire,
it
makes no difference, right? It makes no difference. And as for this is one of the issues where, where do the goals normally come from if Rashford's not scoring them? You're going to get an odd one from Bruno. Yeah, you got 2 from McTominay. Might not get much more for the rest of this calendar year. When's Mount going to start chipping in? When's Anthony going to start chipping in? When he starts playing? Martial, whatever. Where are the goals coming from?
I think the good news is they've got Højlund.
Yeah.
And for me personally, after watching this game, I think McTominay should start in the next game after the international break. They've got Sheffield United away. McTominay should start in the midfield 3. I think he's shown that he's capable of playing and should play more. I haven't always rated McTominay, but one thing you got to say about the kid, he is Man United through and through. He gets it. Another player that's new, who is a Man United fan, who was one growing up, who I think also embodies that, is Højlund. I think they got 2 players there that get what Man United means. Rashford does, and I was a bit disappointed at how the fans reacted to his substitution in the ground, like the cheering and stuff. It's like, this is a guy that bailed you out a lot last season.
Big time.
I know he's going on a bit of a stinker right now, but I just think that reaction was just really poor. And they're going to need him as the season progresses because you don't have enough in your squad to do it without him. So don't boo the guy that's going to be so vital to you making it in what you want to do.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Don't at all, And as someone funnily said online, I mean, he's probably fed half his kids in that stadium. So,
True. That's true. That's a good one.
That's true.
Be careful who you boo. Next time you get home and your child's hungry, just remember, Rashford fed them. So remember that. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do come the end of the international break and whether they can kick on from there. Obviously, Liverpool had their game against Brighton, which ended 2-2. Bit of controversy there at the end of a handball that wasn't given again. But I guess for Liverpool, when you look at what they're doing so far this season, because they're sitting in fourth, and the current top 4 right now is Tottenham first, joint first with Arsenal. They're ahead on goal difference. Not quite sure how that... Oh, because they scored more goals than us. Fair enough. They scored 2 more goals than us and we let in... Anyway, so they're ahead of us on goal difference. Fine. Man City third, Liverpool fourth. Do we think that's what the top 4 will look like in terms of composition? Come the end of the season, I think there's going to be more changes. And secondly, on that note, how well placed Liverpool now to make a good run for the title?
I think the dark horse, the wild card team that's going to push their way near enough, we're talking like a 5-10 gap between the bottom 2, it's probably going to be them.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be them. Spurs won't be there.
Do you think they'll drop out the top 4 altogether, or do you think they'll be the 4th team?
I think they're going to be.
And if they're going to be 5th, which I have no issues with, who replace them in the top 4 as it stands right now? Because those are the closest challenges. You've got Brighton and Aston Villa and Brighton, if I go by order in the table, both level on 16 points. And then behind them, we've got West Ham on 14 points. And then behind them, we've got Newcastle on 13 points. So it's still early in the season. And Man United are on 12. So they're not that far behind, really. There's a 5 point gap. You guys 6 point gap. That sounds a lot, but actually, as the games get played, it's not that much.
I think we'll be back in the top half of the table.
Yeah, I mean, by next game week, you should be there.
Spurs and I think Arsenal and City will have figured it out because as the table's starting to figure itself out, you got Man City and Arsenal in any position you think, because I can't decide. I think Liverpool are going to be very firmly third. I can see Spurs drawing a few games and being. I think they're going to be 4th. As for 5th, it's going to be any of Chelsea, Newcastle, and Villa.
For you, Craig, do you think Tottenham will maintain their place in the top 4? Do you think they'll drop out? And if they do drop out, who would replace them?
Depends on January, how they do over the Christmas period. And it depends on the recruitment in January, because they've still got the Harry Kane money to spend as well. So if they recruit players in January, that can maybe propel them up to the top 4. But do I feel they'll stay there? They're playing well now, but you never know. When it comes to their winter games, when it gets colder, the pitches are more muddier. Let's see if the real Tottenham will stand up. I don't think so. I think team that could challenge them. Aston Villa looked very strong this season. Brighton looks strong. Newcastle, they could go on a run. I know they've got Champions League at the moment. They didn't win Champions League. They beat PSG last week.
Pumping win, yeah.
Smashed them. So I thought them Liverpool.
Because the other thing with Tottenham is they've played all the promoted teams. They've not really
Any
outside
big
of
team?
Arsenal. It's
Not
the
been a
only
big
big team they've played this season.
And Man United as well.
And Man United.
Yeah.
Arsenal United is the only
that's
two.
it,
Really.
yeah. But I'm saying I think after this one they got to play Chelsea. I think they got to play. They play Liverpool as well, Clive.
They played. Liverpool, yeah.
They beat them.
So they still got to play Man City. They still got to play Chelsea. They still got to play Brighton.
Newcastle.
They got smacked by Newcastle last season. So they still haven't got. They got teams that could take points off them. Hopefully, we're praying.
That are competing for that same spot in the top. In the top what? 7? Top 7? Yeah.
I think their starting 11 is very strong, but I don't know if the reserves are very good. If they get a few injuries here and there, how the reserve team players will do.
It's not just injuries, also loss of form. Because Maddison's having a brilliant season, and it's really amplifying. Because there was a big discussion in the summer. You know, obviously they went for Mount in the end, Man United, but then should they have gone for Maddison? Would he even fit their system? I think he's showing that Spurs doesn't really matter. Really, when you're good enough, you work and you make it work. And yeah, he's having a great season so far, but can he maintain this form throughout the whole year?
Lack of Europe as well, I think, helps the squad just to kind of get used to fitness into the point where they should be qualifying for Europe again. You never know.
Yeah, and I can see Newcastle making a big push for it. I mean, will Tottenham stay in the top 4? Only time will tell. I don't know, but they're doing okay this season. They're doing okay, but let's put it in context. Of their 8 games, 3 are against a newly promoted team. They played an out of sorts Liverpool and got a jammy win. And they got a jammy draw against Arsenal, which they won, apparently. So let's just give it some proper context, yeah? So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting. Matt, have you got a hot take this week for us?
Champions League edition.
Go for it.
Champions League edition. And it's to do with Newcastle, funny enough.
Ooh.
I think they are going to get to the quarterfinals.
Big, you know. That would mean that they're probably going to beat a really big team on the way. PSG don't count, by the way. They're not a big team.
They have got it. After watching their first 2 games, in particular that one against PSG, granted, they're not the PSG of what we're used to. But if you would have told me, as if I were a Newcastle fan 2 years ago, fighting relegation with Mike Ashley at the helm, that 2 years later we would be beating PSG at their home ground in autumn time, I'd bite your hand off. And I just think after a very kind of sticky start, they're slowly getting into a bit of a rhythm and really managing the squads in the Premier League and the Champions League. They seem to be really kind of working it really well. I mean, the quarterfinal progress will come at a cost of the league, but time will tell. But I think they got potential to get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I was so happy for them. Like it was weird watching that game, and I love seeing how the fans were happy celebrating. It was just a fascinating experience.
Great game.
And I think for me, it's just interesting to see how well Eddie Howe has taken them up to this next level. And I know for us, I think last season's episodes, we did talk about whether they would look to upgrade from Eddie Howe. I know Mark was saying that he felt that eventually when they want to go to that next level, they might need to upgrade from him. But so far, Eddie Howe is showing that he's capable of punching where you say on paper above his weight, but he's showing as a coach he's got the acumen to actually take them somewhere really interesting. Now, for me, I think the key thing will be that when that first trophy comes, if they can get, I think domestic cups this season, if they can pick up a cup this season as well, that will go a long way. I think the fans will be happy with him because they're in dreamland already. Yeah. Just everything that he's been doing since he got in charge is taking them in dreamland. But I think just for the continued progression of the project, you would want to have something tangible at the end of it. I mean, I think for them, if they get a quarterfinal Champions League run, top 4 Premier League, I think that's a great season. And you could just end it there and be like, okay, that's great. We'll build on that again. I think he would want, and maybe the fans not necessarily, but I think the ownership might say, okay, we want a bit more.
Yeah.
If you give it, because I don't know what their long-term planning is. And the way how they've done their transfers, where they've shown us that they're going for a kind of their version of a self-sustained model. And they've been very clever in how they've bought players and how much they pay for them. And in particular, the age of the players they're buying and their potential and how they fit what they want to do. It's been very, very smart recruitment. You just look at it and wonder, okay, do they make that big jump gamble signing? Like, for example, would they, come January, make a big push for Mbappe? And I'm not saying Mbappe will go to Newcastle. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, would they make that offer just to say to everyone, look,
mean business.
We're looking at a different level here, especially if they get back in the top 4 and they are, let's say that they're within 6 points of first. Would they conceivably think, oh, you know what? Let's make an offer to him.
The only issue they have to go with the financial fair play because
they can sort that out though.
They're obviously you have to earn a certain amount of money revenue wise for you to get players.
True.
It's not like back in the day when Chelsea came through and they're buying every Tom, Dick and Harry in the world. Can't do that anymore. They've changed the way financial fair play has changed the rules and all that.
True. I mean, they can announce a new sponsor.
Yeah.
Like Man City do all the time. That would cover it.
All them charges.
Well, still not been charged.
It's not very quiet.
Well, they're not found guilty yet, but it's definitely implicated. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think that's a decent shout for the week. I guess just as the final thing for us, let's look at the games that's coming up after the international break and what predictions we have. We'll start off with the first game, and that is going to be Liverpool versus Everton at Anfield on Saturday 21st.
Derby day.
3-1 Liverpool.
3-0 Liverpool.
Liverpool win for me. Bournemouth, Wolves at Bournemouth.
Wolves win. 2-1 Wolves.
Bournemouth haven't won a game, have they?
No.
The only couple clubs haven't won.
Wow.
Actually, but Wolves have been pretty good. I'm going Wolves as well. 2-1 Wolves.
Okay, and then next up, Brentford, Burnley at the G-Tech Community Stadium, Brentford.
3-1 Brentford.
Draw.
Man City, Brighton at the Etihad.
2-2.
You know what? 2-2. I don't think they're gonna win. I think
Brighton are gonna be on it.
I'll take a draw, but I think Haaland will bag a hat-trick.
I doubt it.
Will Rodri be back?
Yeah, I think Haaland will bag a hat-trick because he hasn't scored for a number of
Maybe
games.
4-2 Man City.
And they'll win. Newcastle, Crystal Palace at St James's Park.
3-1 Palace. 3-1 Newcastle, sorry.
2-0 Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle have been on it, man. I can see them getting a good 4-1. Forest versus Luton at the City Ground, Nottingham.
2-1 Forest.
I'm gonna say Luton's gonna win a game.
Ooh. One away already. So
2-1 Luton win. We'll skip our own game. Sheffield United versus Manchester United. at Bramall Lane.
4-0 United.
I'm going to say 2-0 Sheffield United.
Bearing in mind, Sheffield United have not won a single game this season. They've lost 4 on the bounce.
Come
But
on,
you're saying
Sheffield.
Sheffield
Come
will
on,
do the job.
Blades.
We'll see about that. Then Aston Villa, West Ham at Villa Park.
Draw.
Sure.
West Ham for me. And then last game on the restart, Spurs versus Fulham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
I want to draw, but I think Tottenham will win that game.
3-1.
Fulham have struggled this season. They've done well in the league this season, so they're lacking a striker at the moment, I would say.
2-1 Spurs.
2-1 Spurs. And then we'll do it for the fun of it. Chelsea versus Arsenal. What we saying?
You go first.
I think 3-2 Arsenal.
You ain't going to have it your own way.
3-2 Arsenal.
I'm going to say a cheeky Nicholas Jackson 1-0. 1-0 to the Chelsea.
I think we're going to beat you. I'm going to say 3-1. I think you'll score, but we'll beat you away from home. And if not, it'll be a 1-0 again.
Up the Chelsea.
I'll take
The
that.
arse.
We'll see how these games pan out, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens after the international break. Our next episode, we're actually going to look back on our predictions for the first 10 games of the season. We've got 8 down, so we're going to look at those first 8 and see how we did, and we're going to revise, if we want to revise, the final 2 games and see what those predictions are. And then we're also going to be having a bit of a mini podcast in between, which is going to just look back on some discussions from pre-season about how Arsenal are going to start the season and how interesting those predictions are in light of the game so far. But thanks everyone for listening, for watching. If you're listening on Spotify, please do rate and let us know how you feel. And do you think that now that the Man City era is beginning to end? I'm not saying it's over, but do you think it's beginning to end? Let us know. Are you excited for the international break, or do you wish that there'll be less international football? And we'll be back with another one very soon. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.